Thank you for coming, Merdine, and I'll get you started up here. 5 minutes. There you are.
Marion Aquatics pool. I'm sure many people in this room learned to swim in the pool, and if they didn't, their children did. If you haven't seen the pool, it's an incredibly beautiful, immaculately kept. It's just a lovely pool. And so the purpose that Alma Newman and I have today is to use numbers, logic, and a little bit of emotion to ask you to take on and continue the use of that pool until the new facility is built, which may be some time. Now, I would like to also acknowledge that over the many years I've used the pool, I've gotten to know the nuns that run the pool, and I would like to acknowledge the incredible gift to this community that they gave for their years of operation. It really is truly, it was a gift to our community. Now, I am going to talk about users and usage and put a few numbers to you, and Alma's going to do the more hard numbers. I have the statistics for 2019, which was logical because pre-COVID, that makes sense. And during that year, there were 19,825 visits to the facility. Now, most of those break down into aquasize and swimming. So there were 8,225 little bodies in the pool learning to swim. So that means Red Cross swimming lessons went on for a long period of time, from September till June. And just a brief description of me and aquasize. So when it's open to lessons every day of the week. And when I go, I'm one of 30 or more, the ceiling is 40, women, seniors, who get into the pool. And when I'm getting into the pool, there are 30 or more coming out of the pool. That's 60 women using that pool, and I challenge you to find a facility that's that well used. And at the end of the day, there's another 30 to 40. That pool is incredibly used, not just the aquasize and not just the swimming lessons, but we also have the pikes. And I'd like to give a shout out to the pikes because I have here a petition with 780 names on it in support of keeping the pool open. Now, they are a girls' team, and they could only swim in that pool. So those are the numbers. There is an incredible use of the pool, and it could even be used more. I'd like to ask Alma to give you some numbers about the cost of running the pool.
Thank you.
So, thank you for agreeing to hear us. I speak to you as a long-time resident of the city, as an enthusiastic user of the 3 pools we have, including the Marion, the Frank Dunn, and the Kinsman Water Park, as a taxpayer and as a concerned citizen. I would really like you to reconsider and review the recent decision that's been made about this pool closing. And I'd like you guys to think about operating it for the next few years till we get the new pool or until the building sells. So you would become the interim front runners of it. Why do we need to do this? Madine's given you the numbers. You've got letters there with the statistics. As far as I'm concerned, this is an offer you guys can't refuse. There's thousands of people use this pool. If this pool closes, the Frank Dunn pool cannot absorb all these people. And so you're going to build a brand new aquatic centre 3 years out, and half the users of it won't have been swimming. That's pretty bad planning as far as I'm concerned. We need to maintain what we have. We need to sustain it and improve it so that when the new pool opens, it's going to be well utilized and not be a white elephant. So I see you guys deciding to do this as a stepping stone to a bright future for the aquatics community. So how are we going to do it? What are the implications dollars-wise? Because I know you have to do that, and I've got 50 seconds left to convince you. I've looked up the CRA documents for the sisters. This pool cost, in 2019, it cost around $350,000 a year to run. You guys gave $143,000. They collected user fees of pretty close to $200,000. So do the math. Didn't cost a lot of other money. If you take it over, I know it will cost more, but I think you could get more user fees. I think this is a very cheap investment. But in terms of where would you find the money, I just got my tax bill on Friday. We have all these levies and things. I'd like to respectfully suggest if you guys would add $25 to the civic facilities levy, that would give you damn near the money to do this. And so I guess I need to close before you shut me off. I haven't quite finished, but can I finish up? Okay. I'm a taxpayer. I'd be very happy to pay another $25 or $30. I just asked one of your great employees at City Hall earlier today what the new police levy is going to, how you generated that. So it's $35 a taxpayer times the number of us who pay taxes. That generates $550,000 a year to fund the 4 police officers. I think that's a great idea. I am not here to denigrate anything you do. You guys do a great job. I know you have to be fiscally responsible, but the Marion Aquatics is a drop in the bucket. We're spending millions of dollars on new land and developments of new facilities. We need to maintain what we have. The pikes, the children, the women, the decrepit seniors like Nadine and I that are keeping arthritis at bay. We're the users of this pool, and there are the odd gentlemen who dare to come and join us. So, in closing, I want you to think about the money. I don't know, I tried to talk to your Director of Community Services, but I couldn't get him today, and I know he's a busy guy. I wanted to know if you seriously looked at the cost of you running the pool. You have lifeguards, you have infrastructure. Your facilities are excellent. You do a great job of running the 2 pools you have. I'd like to challenge you to include the gem of the Marion. That's a gift we've enjoyed. I'm not asking you to keep it forever, but I'm saying let's retain and maintain it till we have the new facility. So, in closing, I just want you to give it some sober second thought. I want you to think about an investment in the wellness, the fitness, the health, and the quality of life of this community. And I'd like you to dig deep into your imagination, your leadership. You're willing to take a risk. And if you need some people to help tell the taxpayers why they need to pay a little more, there's a whole bunch of us who are very willing to help you. But I don't think we need to do this as a fundraising dive. I think we need to pay for it as a group of concerned citizens. So thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to come here.
Mayor Dion?
So I have a question.
Okay.
Have your group thought of leasing the pool? Like if your group would lease the pool, then I would support us continuing on funding our share, which was $140,000. Because the sisters, and I'll agree with your number at 340, but that was them managing the pool, running it. We had none of the staff. They took care of it all. So the price would go up considerably because we would have to take over the management, and of course we're unionized. So I came up with this idea, well, you got such a great group, and they're all involved, that come up with a nonprofit board, and I would be the one to make a recommendation to council that we continue to support this board at $140,000 until our new pool is open or till the building sells. And have you thought of that idea, or you just want us to do it?
No, we haven't, but I think the other problem we have is we're not even an entity. And to become a registered charity and all that stuff, I guess what I'm saying, I'm throwing it back at you guys, because you run 2 swimming pools. You have lifeguards. You know how to do this. The Marion have been paying your rates to the current lifeguards. So I know the budget's going to go a little bit higher, but you have incredibly competent people here at City Hall. Why would you expect a group of old ladies and teenagers to try and run the swimming pool? Like, we don't have the infrastructure or the capacity. So I think it's lovely you're willing to sustain what we have, but I'm suggesting for spending a little bit more money, you guys have the capacity and you're our civic leadership. Why should we offload it? We've been lucky enough to have the sisters do this for us. So I'm sorry, I am a great volunteer.
We're not offloading it, Alma. We don't have it, so we're not offloading it.
Okay.
Okay, we're not offloading it. I'm just trying to find a solution.
Okay.
Because I know the sisters and I appreciate them. They made a better community, and I want them to retire happy.
Yeah.
So
It's just, we don't exist as an entity.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get this happening by September.
I'm just trying to think of it, because just so you know, and this is a well-known fact across the country, no aquatic center makes money. So, and I hate to say that, no aquatic center makes money. And that's one of our challenges with our new one. We know how much we're going to subsidize it to run it, but that's part of what we do, because you have to have a pool for the kids and the adults and the seniors, everything. So we do understand
So that's why I'm saying, as a taxpayer, I'm up for paying for it. And I think a lot of other taxpayers are. If we have to pay another $50 or another $100 to have great facilities in PA, the libraries, the Alfred Jenkins, all of it, bring it on as far as I'm concerned. And if you need some people to help convince people why they should pay a little more, and we need the police and the fire guys too, to me this is not only, but also. I'm not here to take away from anybody. But I know it's hard for you guys, but we could be your allies. So I'm certainly not trying to duck. I have a history of community involvement. So I'm willing to stand up and be counted on this. But I'm sorry, I don't think we can get a board together to run it. And I think that would be foolish to pretend that we could. So, but thanks for the thought. And it's nice to know the money's still there, because there's $140,000 to solve the problem, maybe. No, thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. Does anyone else have? We're not here. We don't expect you to make an instant decision. We just wanted you to revisit it.
So yes, there is more questions. Councillor Ogrotnik?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Alma and Merdine, for your presentation. And again, I apologize for having my back to you,
It's fine.
but I have to speak into the mic here. If I could wave a magic wand and have all this money fall from the sky, I would 100% support this. But it is a financial decision. We went through a budget process, and like we had to cut in my ward in Crescent Heights. We couldn't fund the conversion of a paddling pool to a spray park this year because of our COVID numbers or because of COVID and our revenues are down, et cetera. And so this has been a very, very tough budget. And to even come up with $140,000, that will take, I don't know where we'll get the money from, looking at the numbers. So to take it over is going to be a huge task for the city. I bet you it's probably about $500,000 or more perhaps to take it over.
That's why I said that's like $35 a taxpayer decision times the tax base. That's the decision.
I understand that. That sounds like an easy solution. I don't know right now if there would be the community support for that. I'm not sure if there would be or not. And so if we could get, this would be a good opportunity for your presentation to travel to all the RMs as well and to present to the RM leaders. And because this is a community, the sisters, Sister Jean was my elementary school principal. I mean, I went to Rivier when it was the academy, when it was a co-ed school. They have had an impact on the entire larger community. And so let's have the entire larger community come together and run this facility for the next 2-3 years, and have our RMs and the city work together to make this happen, because the members that you're talking about in the letters come from the larger community. It doesn't come from just Prince Albert. And that's the argument that I've heard from many of the taxpayers in my ward, is that, yeah, we want these facilities, but we also want everybody that's using them to help pay for it. And so if you could make presentations to those RMs, and if we could have everybody agree to make this facility operate, I would be in support of that. But right now, for the city to take it over 100%, we don't have $500,000-600,000 to do it.
But it wouldn't cost that. I think you could generate this $200,000. Last year was a terrible year, but the year before they generated $200,000 with somebody like Jody Boulay and company and the community services group here, thinking through, you could run so many other programs out of there. You could possibly generate $300,000 in revenue, but that would be the seed money for your new aquatic centre too, which I think you want.
But
Anyway, no, it's good.
But so
Hey,
Well-
sorry. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
I'm okay with the comment. That's okay.
It's just, he asked the question and she's answering it, I think. I don't know.
And anyways, and so as I said, I believe that we can't afford it unless we get RMs to contribute, and then I would support a motion to have that particular group come together and run Marion Aquatics for for the nuns, because the sisters of the presentation, they're done, they're out of it. I'm, you know, happy for them to move on. Those are all my comments, so thank you again for your presentation.
Pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards?
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate both of you coming out and presenting and showing the passion you have for one of our jewels of our community for so many years. My kids learned to swim in that pool. It's a sad day to think that it's going to be closing, but it's not on the city council. It's unfortunate that, you know, it operated for so many years, and I believe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, they came to us and said, listen, we need some extra funding, and we did. We committed that $140,000 for 3 years. And I'm prepared to fight and find that $140,000. That's nearly $500,000 on everybody's taxes. I'm prepared to go there and try and find those funds. But I'm going to echo my colleagues' comments about the RMs, and many of the users are coming from the RM, many. And these always seem to fall on the backs of Prince Albert taxpayers. And they don't figure into the calculations, and it's really unfortunate that we can't work as a unit. But never once have I seen the RMs come forward and say, listen, yeah, we're gonna help you out with this project. And I wish it would, because it's unfortunate, but if the city takes over and a pump breaks or the pool cracks, again, it's on the tax, the residents of Prince Albert taxes. If there's toilet paper used, the residents pay, the RMs don't. And it's unfortunate that way. And I really wish that there could be that model where we could operate these facilities that we all utilize. We all utilize it. And I really hope you guys reach out to them and say, listen, we need your support. We need them. I'll bet there's as many RM people that have had their children take swimming lessons as there are in the city of Prince Albert. And that's a reality for many.
I'll just speak briefly, because I'm a member of the RM of Buckland.
Yes.
And I'm really quite willing to approach and actually have talked to now, I'm assuming you've asked the rural municipalities to contribute to the new facility. I'm
Well,
assuming
I
that you
hope
can't
that's
operate
going
it
to be
unless
coming.
you ask. So I'm perfectly willing to ask, because I think they will. And I think there are other RMs. So I have no problem making a presentation to the RMs, because I think they should. And I think that's fair, and I will certainly take my responsibility. I did want to mention one other thing that I didn't have a chance. There is a serious gender issue. This is a time when schools, universities, communities are mandated by law or practice or pressure to give equal opportunities to women and girls. So I want to mention that the Pikes, a group of young women, need the pool. All of us older senior women need the pool. So I just wanted to add that gender issue, because funding the pool is funding women and girls and children.
Thank you.
Anyway, I will do my RM duty.
Yeah, and that your voice would be much appreciated. It's something we need to get, their council and our council at the table and have those valued discussions.
Maybe we can be your catalyst.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Same presentation to the RMs.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Zerkowski.
Not quite finished, ladies. Thank you for your presentation. Very well thought out, very well presented, and passionate as well. From my perspective, I like what you said about not only, but also that we have some responsibility to maintain what we have. The barrier is it's privately owned. And it doesn't mean we can't come up with a win-win. So I too would like to pump the brakes a little bit and see what we can gather into one room, have a conversation, chat about the numbers, and see what model we can come up with. I feel like I'm caught between conversations that are occurring in the community between the sisters and the city and the public. We've actually never had this on an agenda item in the public since we agreed to cost share about 4 years ago. So when we talk about a decision that's been made, there's no decision that's been made for the city to walk away from that, other than the expiration of that commitment. So I'd like to see this conversation continue. I believe your lobbying efforts are going to have to continue, I'm sorry, but they will. And get us together in a room and have this conversation. The RMs, the city, some private people who are passionate about it, and see what we can come up with insofar as a win-win. It may look different, it may be the same, but let's continue that conversation beyond today. I hear that the cities want, the sisters would like to turn the lights off and empty the pool, and then I hear, well, the pool needs to have water in it. So what are the facts? Let's get an agreed set of facts together first, and let's brainstorm what we can do moving forward. Thankfully, we're into the spring, the summer is here. We won't have any operating model in place. The pool usually doesn't open until the fall, so there's some time. I don't feel we need to rush out and jump over a cliff just yet. But let's continue that conversation. So that is my plea on, that the city would get together with yourselves as community leaders, with our neighbors in the RM, because even though the RM government may say, whoa, whoa, not interested, I believe the people living in the RM expect more from that level of government. And I'm looking forward to those conversations continuing.
Great, thank you. Councillor Zepp, did you have something or no?
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to the presenters, and I am much in agreement with the comments from members of council to continue these conversations and work towards a win-win solution here. I guess it's more a question for members of council as to what type of motion we are thinking about proposing. At first, I was thinking that we might be looking for a motion for a report from administration, but I don't know if that's what other members of council are thinking. So I'm interested to hear what type of motion is being thought of on this topic. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mayor Dion?
I make a motion that we refer it to Community Services for a final cost analysis report. So we actually know what the cost would be if we were to take it over, so they know how much money they're going to have to go out and find. The only thing that I want to do is I want to plead with everyone, please let the sisters retire. Please. They've done so much. I'm soon going to celebrate 135 years with them. I'm going to soon celebrate the new deacon. I'm soon going to celebrate the new bishop. I'm soon going to celebrate a new sister. They're tired. They were going to even use their own money to keep it open a little longer, until I finally said, no, at some point we got to say no. You know, you've done us a world of good, and I don't want them to be dragged into this. You know? Okay. Okay, because I just love those sisters and I will defend them. So, okay, and I'm prepared to get this final report so that we know what we're talking about, and good luck talking to the RMs.
Great, thank you. Councillor Head, did you have anything?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I do. Well, just to kind of flesh out this motion a little bit more. I mean, there were some comments made about meeting with other government elect, and I think you know, I'd like to see that kind of in the works as well. And I get maybe getting the report might make sense before we do that, but I think that should be also be noted tonight as well. That we're going to have some ongoing efforts and those conversations as so indicated here in chambers.
Great, thank you. Mayor Dion?
Just respond back to you, Councillor Head. They're going to do that work. It's not, they've already said they're going to be the advocacy. The one's already going to the RM at Buckland. That's their duties. That's not our duties, and that's why I referred it. The only thing I think council needs to know is that we do need to know what the final cost analysis would be to run that operation.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. Councillor Lennox-Zepp?
Thank you. Just a question for the mover. This motion, we would normally, then there would be 90 days before the deadline for the report to be brought back to council under our current procedure. And I'm just wondering if the intention is to see if we can have that done earlier than 90 days, which I think would bring us to late August. I just was wondering if there was maybe a intention for it to be quicker than the usual procedure.
Mayor Dion?
I'll work with the department and I'll move that ahead to 30 days. We'll have the report come back to us because I'll meet with the sisters because it's going to be hard for us to get some of the costs. Natural gas, and this is the challenge that we have. That building's 195,000 square feet, and it has one gas meter and one electrical meter. And we don't know if the heating system's got to run jointly, so, but I will meet with the sisters, so I do believe with that meeting and the meeting with the department, we can have it done within 30 days.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kilmore?
I just want to thank you for the presentation. And my question is really in council. What is the process now for these people? Are they they'll go out and meet and then they write a letter to the city clerk and then or make a presentation to us? Or what's the next steps that we can help guide them? So they go to the RM, and then the RM gives them information, and then they come back to us? Is that the... Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Zerkowski, please.
Thank you. Well, along those lines, I think it looks like we've been able to pump the brakes today and continue the conversation. So my question is, in order to keep this group involved, and I'm sorry, but you are now officially a group, I think you need to let us and the city clerk know who the contact person is, so that we can move through this journey together and come up with a commonly shared understanding of the facts and hopefully work towards a solution. So give that some thought, please. Thank you, Madam Chair.
It's kind of ad hoc. Yeah, we're pretty responsible and reliable. So we're hard to think of ourselves as a group, but I guess we are. It won't be easy to forget.
Not the first time that's been said.
We have the motion on the screen. I'll prompt the vote. We're all voting. Councillor Zepp?
Yes.
Councillor Head?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll accept. Unanimous. Perfect. Thank you. So we're going to go to the consent agenda. Is there any items that you'd like to be removed? Nothing? Good. Thank you. You spoil me rotten. Anyone? Oh. Mayor Dion?
Well, I don't hear anyone, so I'll move the consent agenda as presented.
Great, thank you. I'll prompt the vote. Councillor Head?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Lennox-Zepp?
Yes.
Thank you. Accept it. All right. Yeah, we're going to do some traffic calming next. So we'll go to reports of administration and committees, traffic calming review by Engineering Services Manager, Mohammed. I think he's on Teams. I don't know. Is he supposed to be here?
I believe he was supposed to be in. Ask Wes. Maybe ask for Wes. Ask if Wes is Mohammed. Ask Wes.
So Director Wes Hicks, is Mohammed on his way down? Oh. Welcome, Director. Oh, just one sec, I'll get you your podium there.
Thank you. So the engineering services manager was ill this morning and he couldn't attend tonight's meeting, so I'll be filling in for him. So to take you through the PowerPoint that we presented to the committee. So traffic calming review. The main thing here is the purpose of traffic calming, the best practices, the other traffic calming policies, traffic calming devices, and the City of Prince Albert traffic calming policy are the topics that I'll cover. So presently, the definition here is the combination of mainly physical measures that reduce the negative effects of motor vehicle use, alter driver behavior, and improve conditions for non-motorized street users, and to restore the streets to their intended function. So that's the basic definition of traffic calming. So the intended use of the streets, and you can see there's 4 different categories for the streets: residential streets, local collectors, designated collectors, and designated arterials. And the purpose of each of those types of streets is noted on the slide there. So when we look at traffic calming, we follow the best practices, the Transportation Accommodation Standards of Canada. And these are the 10 things that we do look at. So you go through this process starting at the beginning, identifying the problem, you quantify the problem, so you take data, numbers, and readings from the street, consider the different improvements that you might do, consider the effects that those changes could have on the neighborhoods nearby. You avoid restricting access and egresses the best you can. Use self-enforcing measures. You try not to impede non-motorized modes, that's the pedestrians. You consider all the services that are provided around that area that you're looking at. And then you need to have neighborhood support if you're going to make any changes. And then you monitor and you follow up on those changes. So what we did is we did do a survey. We did contact other cities. You can see all the cities that we did contact. Prince Albert, Saskatoon, Calgary, and St. Albert all have traffic calming policies and criterias. Other cities, Red Deer, Moose Jaw, Regina, Medicine Hat, and Brandon, don't have a formal policy, but they follow the TAC, which is the Transportation Association of Canada standards, which is also what we follow, but we have a policy. So we did try to survey Western Canada and see what other people are doing. As you can see, the cities that do have traffic calming policies, we all apply the same criteria: speed, volume, pedestrians, community support, then consult with the emergency services, snow removal, and transit. All those things do play an impact, especially when you're talking about arterials and collectors, because you don't want to impede your emergency services. So different kinds of traffic calming devices. So we made a chart here. It's quite extensive. I won't try to go over the whole thing, but you look at different types depending on the type of street that you're trying to calm. So residential streets, there are many. Residential collectors, there's a few less. Designated collectors, there's a few less again. And finally, arterials, there's very few that you would attempt to calm traffic on an arterial, because the purpose, as you saw in the early slide, is to move traffic on an arterial collector. You don't want to slow traffic. But on a residential street, it's the vice versa. You want to slow down the traffic and keep the large number of people who don't need to go through the neighborhood out of the neighborhood. Now, these are some of the types that we have used. Full closure of the street. This is in the South Wood area. So it was a through street, which was one of the square blocks, original of the city. When we developed that neighborhood, there was a lot of traffic flowing through. So we turned it into 2 end-to-end cul-de-sacs. That's a full closure, and it made the residents of those areas happy, but it also didn't impact any other ways of transportation. You can still drive through the neighborhood. It wasn't an arterial collector or anything like that. So in the end, that was the best solution. Another one was raised crosswalks, which we started in the city of Prince Albert three years ago through council and through the planning committee that we first presented at, and then with an SGI grant in both the years 2019 and 2020, we raised crosswalks at school zones. So there's several of those throughout the city. All of them are in school zones, except for one, which is on Muzzy, which we installed last year. Another traffic calming device is the speed monitoring signage, which was part of those projects of raised crosswalks. It was part of the SGI grant funding that we received. So we have these speed monitoring signs in all the school zones that have the raised crosswalks at the elementary schools. And then we also purchased 8 additional units that the council requested. One is in each ward, and they get moved every 3 months to a different location that is picked by the traffic manager and the councillor. So presently, they're on their 3rd location, because we started last fall. So one of the traffic calming devices that has been used, it's a very old one that we used. It's downtown on Central Avenue, and they're called curb extensions or neck downs. Now you use one of these, especially in areas of higher pedestrian use and low traffic volumes, where you're protecting the parking curb, but you're protecting pedestrians when they get to the intersections. It gives them less roadway to cross, more space to stand waiting for that light to change. And it's one of the types of reductions that you keep the speed down. Now, to give you an example of how well that works in that particular situation, when you get to the last slides here, you'll see that our speeds on Central Avenue are considerably below the speed limit. They're a little hard to read, but 36, 32, 33, 28, and 34 kilometers an hour on each of the blocks of Central Avenue. Speed limit's 40. Forced turning islands. We do a lot of these in businesses. So there's some at the Co-op, there's some at Tim Hortons, there's some at the Toronto Dominion Bank. There's a few throughout the city. Cornerstone is a good example. So you make a forced turning island that controls the direction of traffic so they can't cross the street. They can only go right in, right out, reduces congestion and cars waiting and blocking. Another one is, believe it or not, on-street parking. So when you eliminate parking on a street, it makes the street appear wider to vehicles, and they tend to drive a little faster. When you add street parking, people are then narrowed down, and they tend to drive a little slower. So maintaining on-street parking in residential areas is important to keep the speed down. Despite continuous requests for no parking signs in front of people's homes. Another one is traffic calming devices, is raised medians. These are incredibly valuable on arterial roads. When you have too many cross intersections on an arterial road, you have more chances of interactions of cars trying to cross the major street and causing accidents, usually a T-bone accident. So on arterial roads, you want to direct the traffic to the traffic light intersections, which are evenly spaced. So a good example is 2nd Avenue in the Hill. We have the fence that goes up the middle of the median. There's no cross streets. Very important for safety because vehicles and pedestrians crossing in the middle of the hill was very dangerous. That was instituted back in the 1970s, and we've always maintained it. This is the kind of thing that we've also done in some of the new developments where traffic starts to increase greatly close to intersections, and you have to protect the left-hand turning lane. So you have to build a median the length of that block to keep people from crossing the intersections close to the major intersection. So the traffic calming policy was reviewed, and the major change is this. We removed the must not be a collector arterial requirement. This was a request by the management committee. We added in the following, that Prince Albert City Council may at times disagree with the findings of administration with regards to whether traffic calming is warranted or what type of traffic calming devices should be used on a street. Council may request that administration provide additional reports to council regarding other options. Council has the authority to make the formal exceptions to the traffic calming policy. That's pretty much the only change we made to the actual policy. So the exemption. Now, in addition to that, we've created a traffic calming brochure, which has been attached to the report, basically outlining all the steps and the procedures and where traffic calming is allowed and where it's not allowed, and if you want to proceed with asking for traffic calming on your particular location. It's not unlike the policies and the brochures we have on other topics, like sewer backup, or getting a crossing application, or the oil paving oil program. Sorry. So, and finally, oh, that was the last one. I thought they were going to show the maps. Attached to the back of the PowerPoint is the traffic volume map for the City of Prince Albert, the speed count map for the City of Prince Albert, and the speed limit map for the City of Prince Albert, just for some reference material so you can see the areas that where there is higher traffic volumes and the areas where there's higher speeds. That's everything, and I'm open for any kind of questions.
Great, thank you. Councillor Zerikowski?
Can you point to me in the policy, I couldn't find it, that grants exceptions to the policy on collectors that are close to elementary schools and community centers?
I don't think it said that specifically, it just said in general.
Okay. So why is that? Because I'm a little confused, because there was certainly a conversation, and if we're not going to make that change in the policy, because policy guides administrative decisions, I'm not sure why we would need to be here that if council chooses to have an exemption, that's why the business comes here. We make that decision, but in terms of policy, we had asked at the committee level that traffic calming measures on collectors now, when needed, and near elementary schools and community centers, that those locations be worthy of a second look if requested by the community in the neighborhood. So,
I think the idea was that the general statement that was added is not specific to any particular location or street. It would be council's wish to overrule the policy. So what we added was that clause.
yes.
Because it would be difficult for us as administration to endorse putting some of those devices on arterials and collectors and going against the transportation accommodation standards of Canada.
So it says collectors, so I don't want to talk about arterials, right? Talk about collectors only. And if it isn't reflected in the policy, it will be dismissed by administration outright. If the community rose up and said, there's an issue, we'd like to make it safer around elementary schools, community centers, and it just happens to be a collector.
In that situation, prior to this, of course, we would not have endorsed it or wanted to bring it forward to council. In this case, with the exception, that would come to council for your input.
But it's not reflected in the policy, right?
We haven't specifically said collectors next to schools,
So
but
how
it
do-
says collectors and arterials.
So after I'm no longer here, and you're no longer here, and Mohammed's no longer here, how do we ensure that practice continues, if not through policy?
I think through this statement, because it is open-ended. It might not be next to a school, it might be next to something completely different.
And this statement is reflected where? In policy?
It would be added to the policy.
Okay. And that's what I'm asking. I couldn't find it in the policy.
6.12. That's what I'm sold.
So I heard somebody say off mic, it's 6.12.
That's the recommendation.
Yes. So thank you to administration for allowing council permission to override policy. That's good to know. But I don't see that change in the policy itself.
Six point 6.12.
Okay.
Page 9.
Yeah, so it says Prince Albert City Council may override the findings of administration, which is frequently an option on Mondays, with regards to whether traffic calming measures warranted or what type of traffic calming device should be used on a street. Council may request that administration provide additional reports to council regarding their options. Council has the authority to make informed exceptions to the traffic calming policy. So again, it's not, help me out with this, I'm looking for help, some guidance here. I don't see this change in the policy. I see the policy now has given council permission to create exceptions. That's what I'm asking. I don't see this as becoming part of the policy, so.
Yes, it's written at 6.12 on page 9 in the policy. It becomes the policy.
So what's become, I don't mean to be difficult here, but I've learned that how important policy is to guide decisions in administration. And this policy, when I read it, says, council may override administrative recommendations. That's what it says. I'm not sure why that needs to be in policy, because we know that. And I do not mean to be difficult, I apologize, but I do not see the change that we talked about reflected in the policy attached here. 6.12 tells me that council may request administration provide additional reports, and council has the authority to make exceptions. So I'll pause there. If somebody wants to educate me, I'm willing to hear that, but I've read this over and over again, and I don't see the language at the top of the report being reflected in policy. That traffic calming measures could be made at collectors, on collector roads, when near elementary schools and/or community centers. I do not see that in the policy. What I'm reading here is council has the authority to override administrative recommendations.
Okay. Let's see, Councillor Kilmore.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So in reading this report, I really struggled trying to figure out what was happening in this report. Like, why was this report written? And I had difficulty understanding the policy. Like, so my question is, and I need more education about this, obviously. Policy is written and approved by City Council, is that true? So when decisions are made by City Council, things are brought, a report is brought, a recommendation by the department is brought forward, and then City Council approves or does not approve it. So in this report, the language in it, the one area of concern I had that I was having difficulty with was the on page 5 of the report where it talked about City Council could disagree, and I then tried to find that in the policy because it sounded like it was written in the policy, but I couldn't find that in the policy, if that makes sense, the way the report was written. So I found the writing of this report did not help guide me to understand the decisions that are being brought forward to us. With Councillor Zurkowski explaining that management committee was hopeful that something talking about that collectors next to elementary schools and community centers would be able to be looked at, considered. That helped me understand, okay, now I'm on the journey. So I guess the whole point of me talking at this point is that I appreciate the traffic calming. I went back and looked at it when it was first written to try and understand it. I spent a lot of time, because of this report, trying to figure out what this report was for. And so that I agree with everything that in traffic calming. I believe the department does, follows the traffic, the Transportation Association of Canada guidelines. That is absolutely imperative, and I appreciate that. But I guess my overarching point that I'm trying to make right now is I don't understand why this report is in front of us.
Director?
Thank you very much. So my understanding is one of the driving factors was a request for traffic calming on 6th Avenue West next to St. Anne's School and the West Hill Community Club, which is a collector. We did traffic counting and traffic speed counting on the street 2 years in a row. Last council report that had the speed monitoring, that was 6th Avenue West was included in that report, and we found no evidence of speeding on that road. It's also a bus route for 2 buses. It's a ambulance, fire, and police route. It has 1 2 half signals for pedestrian crossing. It has 2 crosswalks for pedestrian crossing in the area. So it is our position that we would not need to do any traffic calming on 6th Avenue West. But we were still requested to bring forth this report to make it possible to add traffic calming to that street.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Grotnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I understand that we have to follow national standards, et cetera, and what have you. I guess my problem is that we also have to put sometimes common sense into what we do and how we do it. And I'm somewhat with Councillor both Zurikowski and Kilmer on this report. It's a little bit confusing to a certain extent, and I'm still trying to find where I found this, where we're adding elementary schools and community centers to traffic calming devices. What I think we need to do is when we decide to do traffic calming, like in spite of what you said, Director, 6th Avenue West is a busy street. And we do have 2 elementary schools. One elementary school uses it or is bordering it. The other elementary school, the kids would cross 6th Avenue. And so in order for safety, we put lights at 28th and 6th Avenue West, in spite of the fact that that was not the most busy intersection that didn't have lights. The most busy intersection that didn't have lights was 22nd and Central. Second was 15th Avenue East and 22nd Street. That doesn't have lights. And third was that one. But we saw a reason, and we used common sense, that, you know what? Tons of kids are crossing that area. We need to do this. And that's what I think we need to do when we talk about traffic calming, is we need to start using some common sense. I argued, for the one on Muzzy. It made sense. We put a brand new playground. We got tons and tons and tons of kids in Crescent Acres. Kids are running across Muzzy. We need to slow traffic down. Makes sense, common sense. And that's what we need to do, is when we talk about traffic calming devices. So I could maybe, I get where you're coming from on 6th Avenue. We need to slow the traffic down right at that crossing. We do have a crosswalk there, but and maybe not a raised crosswalk should be there, but we need to slow traffic down so that kids are safe, because kids are unpredictable, whether they're going to run out or not. I see that all the time on Brannion. In spite of the fact that we've got 2 speed bumps, right now with all these sports programs starting up and cars parked, I agree that a lot of us do slow down when there's cars parked, but some don't, and kids dart out between those cars, and so we got to slow it down. And so I would like us to add, to this, where we're going to include traffic calming devices near parks and playgrounds. I think as we start developing these great parks and playgrounds in our report that we had a few years ago, and we've put a priority in there, right? We're spending $170,000 now, I think, or something on parks and playgrounds. Well, we're attracting kids to those areas. So as we're attracting kids to those areas, common sense tells me they're going to be running across the street, biking or what have you. We need to slow traffic down around those areas. So I think we should add parks and playgrounds to that area. Another area where I think we could have traffic calming devices is with the Rotary Trail. When the Rotary Trail crosses streets. Now, there, but it also crosses 28th and Marcus Road. That corner is dangerous for pedestrians on the Rotary Trail, especially if you're on a bike. 28th and Marcus. Is it 28th and Marcus? No. 15th and Marcus, sorry. 15th and Marcus, sorry, yeah. That corner is terrible.
And that's where we need, again, something, some indication, whether it be signage, massive paint on the street, slow down, rumble strips, going in either direction to slow the traffic down at that corner, because we're going to see some problem. And so we could have a policy, but we need to break it a lot of times to use common sense in where we need to slow traffic down in this city. So thank you for the report. Thank you to the admin committee, is that what you guys are called, that put this together and brought this here. But I think we're missing some key things, and one of the key things, as I said, is common sense.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. To Councillor Kilmer of why this is here, it's in front of us because any discussion that came forward about calming measures, about traffic calming measures, were shot down. We did a traffic count. They're this type of road. No, we're not doing it. We have a policy. No. And that's why it's here, because the common sense factor went out the total door, and it was very frustrating. So this is why we sit here today. And I'm glad, it was rewritten, and now there's a process to come forward. I'm happy about that. I'm pleased about that. I was a little taken back by 6.12, where it allows council to disagree. That something about the wording threw me off there, but when you read it properly, it makes sense and it makes it open, but it still allows us to disagree, which we do every day. I understand why the public are frustrated with the speed. I do get it. I don't want to slam the door on these discussions because, let's face it, there's more cars on the road every day. There's way more cars on the road than there was 20 years ago. And that brings more speed to the roads, more traffic. It brings the light to the awareness of the speeding that it occurs. Add cameras on every second house capturing, speeding cars going by. Certainly that brings awareness. Some of the part of the report, like, and I'm going to bring this to Sherman Drive, the sign on Sherman Drive. It was, it helped. It certainly helped reduce the speed, but the average speed that it captured wasn't accurate. And I know that because people come up to Sherman Drive, and as they know they're going to turn onto Dunn, where the sign was facing, so they're slowing down already. So many of those vehicles were already slowing down, so it's not totally accurate. I'm not saying that there should be a speed bump there or anything like that. I'm just saying some of the data we get, that's where I feel like we need to be able to challenge that, and it's not rigid and set in stone. Yeah, we have this data, but it's not completely accurate. One question, maybe two. Self-enforcing measures, is that just radar? What does that mean, self-enforcing measures?
Radar.
Radar?
Yeah, police enforcement.
So the police enforcement that we have in PA isn't substantial for capturing radar. I understand, and I don't know where it is, but I thought it was the commissionaires that could come in and do photo radar on a problematic street. Apparently, it's not the commissionaires. Somewhere, there's a group of people that I know the community of, it was either Tisdale or Nipawin hired them. They stood on one area, they captured pictures for a week, and they slowed the heck out of traffic. I need to know where that is. I can't find it. Someone surely has more knowledge about this than me. I think it would be good to bring into our community periodically on streets that are questionable. Are you aware of this group?
No, but
No.
it was brought up during our meetings for the Barton Drive issue with the police.
Yeah, and I thought it was until finally someone got a hold of the commissionaires and they said, no, we don't do that service. I've seen it, I'm sure the gentleman said I worked for the commissionaires. They had photo radar, bang, it worked, and that community was very pleased.
It might have been the special constable unit. We did have a presentation by a company several years ago that was introducing photo radar. They came and set up red light cameras at the stop sign over here at 11th and 1st to show us how to operate it. And they talked about that the laws had been changing in the Western Canadian provinces to allow, I think it was special constables, to hand out speeding tickets and collect photo radar. I think that's what it was related
This was photo
to.
radar. I agree with my colleague, Councillor Ogrodnik, about the 15th and Marquis. Somebody's going to die there. It's something that I hope you put down in your notes, and we need to come up with something there because it crosses, the Rotary Trail crosses, and that speed on 15th Avenue is absolutely ridiculous. And Marquis. Marquis is 60 though, so it's crazy. So hopefully we can come up with a solution there sooner than later.
The long-term solution for that intersection is it becomes a T intersection where 15th is a stop sign. They must stop because Marcos would be the through road and it would continue on to the east. So it would become a T intersection and they would have to stop. And then all left-hand turning on Marquis onto 15th would also have to stop because they'd have cross traffic to deal with.
And that'll be great.
But that's a long-term, that's the next stage of Marquis Road.
Yeah, which could be 10 to 20 years. We don't know. So prior to that, hopefully we can get something. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Zepp, anything?
Yes, thank you. Question for the director. I have heard requests on 15th Street West to look into neck downs, as you put in your PowerPoint. Can you tell me if you have any general comments on neck downs and then on a street like 15th Street West?
So thank you. So 15th Street West, as you can see in the maps, is an arterial street. And so it wouldn't be recommended for that, I believe, if you go to the chart. Because it is an arterial roadway, it does connect the city to the outskirts and the penitentiary and all the gravel pits that are to the west of the city. So it does have a higher volume of traffic. But if you go to that summary sheet, it shows which ones that you should use and which ones you should not. For arterials, there are very few that you would ever even consider. Parking on street and corner radius reductions would be the only other one which that you would even consider.
Okay, and then my other question is, I've heard request for some type of traffic calming in a purely residential area. Which of these would administration recommend would be the smartest to look at for a area that was purely residential?
Well, as you can see on that chart, there are a number of potential possibilities. We haven't done residential calming per se, because as you realize, there's 240 kilometers of roadways through the city. So as soon as you start in one location, you can anticipate that there will be many more requests. That does give some difficulties for our crews, especially come winter time. I mean, right now we do have about 16 of those tabletops. They're in the school zones. The guys are used to them now, but you can still see a few scrape marks in them because they're, you know, sometimes in deep snow, they're a little hard to find. But so if you look at some of the possible things, like the speed tables that I just spoke of, there's raised crosswalks, if it was a crosswalk. There's textures crosswalks. Curb extensions are expensive because you do have to construct them out of concrete and asphalt. And then you also have to manage the drainage because catch basins are usually on the corners. And the catch basins have to collect the water all the way down the length of the street. So if you put a curb out, you could be blocking water. So we might have pooling of water. Traffic circles They're a little more difficult also to put in existing neighborhoods if the streets are kind of narrow, but in new neighborhoods, you could design them in. Raised island medians to stop cross-traffic. And there's a list of them here. So I guess it would really depend on the situation and the location.
Thank you.
Councillor Head, did you have anything?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of comments. There's a lot of discussion here, so I appreciate some of the correspondence and the conversation leading up to, I guess, to me talking. But so I don't have a whole lot of questions, but I guess more around a comment. I know talking to the previous director, I had flagged a few concerns for her, and so I won't take up the time to this evening, but I will be following up tomorrow around some traffic calming measures within my ward. So thanks for the comments, and I do want to say that I get the intention of the administration, adding in the line of 612, having council have the right to appeal or make a change to those final decisions. So happy about that, whether it's, properly worded, the intentions is there. So I wanted to say, I'm good. I'm happy on that. So yeah, willing to support that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Dion?
Okay, I'll be quick because we prolonged this a long time. First of all, I'm glad to see that Public Works is finally getting on side and starting to supporting traffic calming. You're still not there, but you're getting there. Because let me tell you, they do work. I just walked to Riverside Drive, and they're amazed on what they did. The one guy said to me, he hates it in front of his house, but he said, do not move it. Because now half the traffic goes up to the highway instead of cutting through Nordale. They're going, Hazeldale. They're going back up to the highway, the local traffic, instead of speeding through them. So it does appreciate it. And I live in Olive Diefenbaker Drive, and I know those raised crosswalks work. Second, I actually stopped. I have a commissioner's number. They actually been hired by the Department of Highways. They normally set up in construction zones. They have vans and they have photos, and they do all the writing and stuff. So I am going to follow up on that one. So I'm glad you brought that up again. I made a note to follow up because the province actually hired them to do construction zones, and that's the gentleman we met. So thank you.
Mayor, if I may respond to your comment there, the one when you talked about Riverside, and that's a very good analogy, a good point, that the traffic moves to a different route. And that is the main concern of adding too much traffic calming to arterials or collectors, because it's in the report that studies have shown if you put traffic calming on those streets, then people will take an alternative route. And if it means cutting through a neighborhood, they will. And then we have a different problem.
Councillor Zurikowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of final thoughts, and then I'm going to make a recommendation or a motion heading into council for some more thought, I suppose. It's certainly not just about, it's not about speeding. Traffic calming isn't always about speeding. It's, and I hesitate to talk about specific locations because I think good policy serves the people in that neighborhood and fills the needs of the community. And this policy has always been lacking from day one. And so it took us 8 years to have a review of this policy, and I don't want to lose this moment in time. So my recommendation is this, that the traffic calming policy be changed to be able to address areas along parks and when there is a cluster of elementary schools and or community centers, regardless if it's a collector or not. And I couldn't find a better word than cluster, so we'll think about that, if we may. Sure. That the traffic calming policy be changed to be able to address areas along parks and when there is a cluster of elementary schools and or community centers, regardless if it's regardless if it's a collector or not. Elementary schools, and or community centers? That's close, yeah. So, and let's not forget that when a community or a neighborhood rises up, or a cluster of families rise up and say, there's an issue, we've been screaming about it for years, please listen to us. There's still a process. There's lots of exits along the way of that process that administration will go through to ensure that there's community support and that it makes common sense, as my colleague indicated and said so well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards?
Very quickly, the cost to put the speed bumps, the raised crosswalks in, how much are they?
I believe that was in the report. If I can quickly find it, I think it was $5,000 for the raised crosswalk tabletops and about $1,500 for a speed bump.
Yeah, okay, so the speed signs that we ordered, I think were about $4,500.
Approximately $5,000 each.
Those were ones that collected lots of data.
Correct.
The more simple speed signs, would they be substantially lower?
Not substantially, because of it's just basically that CPU computer chip that does the extra calculating and storing. It's the actual signage and the installing of it and the solar panel that makes up the most of the money. You'd maybe save maybe $500 and you'd still be at $4,500 a unit without the collecting data information.
Because they definitely work. Those flashing speed signs slow traffic, no question. Teenagers say it all the time. Oh yeah, you know, you got that speed sign on Sherman, I slow right down. It reminds me, so it's something that we need to look at. The one on the bridge is not very good, yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, we got a motion on the board. Get the vote.
Thank you.
Open. Councillor Zepp?
Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Head?
Yes.
Thank you. No, I didn't. What do you want me to do? Sorry.
Thank you. We'll make the changes accordingly.
Thank you, Director. Okay, Charter of Accountants restructuring. I have a verbal report from Cheryl, the Finance Director, and Glenn Leclerc from Corporate Services.
Wait for a minute, she's running. She's running like if there's a news story.
Podium. There we go, we got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I'm requesting that $70,000 be approved to have Central Square assist with restructuring the chart of accounts. And I'm also requesting $7,900 be approved to have Central Square provide services in archiving the city's Great Plains database. I'm asking these two projects to be funded from fiscal stabilization. Normally, I discourage the use of fiscal stabilization, but these two projects are key to other projects the city currently has in progress. These would be things such as customer consolidation, accounts receivable cleanup, in order to use virtual City Hall, and also so that we can use our budgeting software, Questica, and also for City Works, which is currently underway. I had reviewed various funding options. The IT reserve is expected to be less than $1,000 by the end of the year, and reserve money has been spoken for. We're already using current existing budget in order to keep with these current projects. So we've done a little bit of rework to our current budget in order so that we can keep carrying on with some of our smaller projects. So the benefits of restructuring our chart of accounts, we know Great Plains was implemented and in use as early as 2006. Information at that time was taken from VATM, the old software, and it was converted to Great Plains. At that time, there was little or no changes to the chart of accounts. We also know that the data that's held in our database has never been archived. The current data goes back to as far as 1998. Having all this data in our system took us 2 hours to try and consolidate one customer account. So it's dragging our system, and it's not just trying to process specific items, it's across the board when we're processing items. That goes into taxation, utilities, other accounts receivable. So the last chart of account review may have been done prior to the year 2000, which was maybe when Y2K happened. I doubt that that happened. Since the conversion, since Great Plains in 2006, the city's infrastructure has grown. They have changed our infrastructure. We have changed or added services. We've established new direction and focus, but the chart of accounts have no flexibility to grow and support these changes. The current accounts do not meet the need and are in fact hindering the ability to implement and use budgeting software and other corporate projects. Proper numbering scheme was never implemented. If it was, it's been so many years that we've added, changed accounts. So this has decreased our reporting functionality in Great Plains. So every accounting software has its canned reports, and we're limited with using some of those. So we rely a lot on IT services to help with that functionality. Our chart of accounts are our foundation of reporting, tracking financial information for funds, departments, for functional areas, and for specific information. The inflexibility of our accounts has contributed to the growth in the number of accounts. We're up to about 29,000 accounts now, and some of these accounts no longer provide useful financial information. As our departments change or our org structure changes, so does our financial information. We are limited with flexibility, so when we have reorgs or functional areas that are moved from one department to another, it makes it very difficult. So there are different parts to our chart of account. There's several segments. The one segment that we have is called what we refer to as an object code. These object codes identify the detail and the specific nature of the transaction, and that could be whether it's a specific revenue item, expense item, capital, equity. This became very apparent when we go through our budget each year. We go through with each department what their requests are for the budget, and we always have extra lines in there. We always have extra stuff in there. And it becomes apparent when we start seeing managers copying and tracking items because our financial data is not very clear or it's limited. Our chart of accounts restructuring would help build us a solid foundation in order to fully use our features in Great Plains, and this would be such things as City Hall. And also, we're hoping that it will assist us when we are installing and implementing City Works. The last benefit is being able to implement the use of the budgeting software Questica. The attempt was made last year to partially fix the chart of accounts. However, the number of accounts that needed to be fixed grew, and the task became too daunting. We went from a couple of hundred accounts to about 800 accounts that would need to be modified in order to make the system work. We can do a workaround. However, that does not help with other software. Our goal is to do the 2022 budget. However, we're going to be doing the line-by-line budget for 2022. So we will be doing, trying to get the Questica budgeting software for 2023. So this chart of accounts is a very complex project, but it's also a corporate-wide endeavor. It's going to require input and time and effort from other departments, not just financial services or from IT. So those dedicated hours, I have commitment from other departments that they would like to do this. I believe that we could have more effective and meaningful information. The other one, the database archiving. As I mentioned earlier, we discovered that database has never been archived. And this discovery was just made in the previous month or two when we were working on our customer consolidation project. One of the things, if we were to get Central Square to assist us with that, it would be of benefit for the city because then IT can learn from this experience and this procedure can then be performed in-house. So I'll stop there, and the corporate director of corporate services will just talk a little bit about the IT impacts.
Thank you, Cheryl. So from an IT department, we're working towards a future vision, and that future vision is one set of systems working in unison with each other and integrating with each department. The initiatives that Cheryl explained to you today will assist in reaching that vision. In short, these projects will contribute to enhancing or for the implementation of Great Plains, Questica, CityWorks, and Virtual City Hall. Cleaning up this data will allow us to pursue the city's goal of digital workflows, and the retention of financial data, resulting in the efficiencies across the city to improve the utilization of our workforce and deliver faster services to our residents. Cheryl mentioned that cleaning up the chart of accounts will enable software to integrate and feed other data into Great Plains and will provide more accurate data, such as work orders with CityWorks, more accurate budgets, and the ability to provide future forecasting with Questica, and consolidating customer accounts as being one part of implementing our virtual City Hall. Additionally, finance will be able to leverage the enhanced capabilities of Great Plains to create their own reports, as Cheryl mentioned, without the involvement of IT, and provide better information to the managers and to you as council for decision-making purposes. For long-term viability, we need to make improvements to our systems from time to time to prolong the life of our system and to gain the maximum return on investment. Our financial system is the foundational piece of our IT infrastructure and is extremely expensive to replace. Moose Jaw just replaced theirs at $1.9 million. If we don't make systematic upgrades, we run the risk of not utilizing our system correctly, mothballing the system, and replacing it for a more costly alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Edwards?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. One question that kind of stood out to me, the Questica, what if I'm saying that right? Mm-hmm. We purchased this software in 2015 for how much?
The software was purchased, I believe, it was a combination of software plus implementation services. I believe it was just over $100,000.
So that concerns me. So we purchased software in 2015 for $100,000 and never used it. I know you weren't the director at the time.
Gone through 3 directors.
3 directors. $100,000 spent and no use of it in 6 years. I sure hope we don't do that very often. That one concerns me a whole lot, that we've had $100,000 sitting doing nothing.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sirikowski, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is giving me some pause. This is giving me some pause, so I have a few questions. And I'm hearing there's value in what you're asking for, but and you mentioned 2006, issues back in 2006 moving forward to where we are today, so if there are so many issues and concerns, why didn't we hear about this at budget time? Why wasn't this request? Because that's where I like to hear about the vision stuff. Somebody mentioned vision. Let's hear about the big picture vision stuff at the budget request. Because I'm with my colleague. I need time for this to breathe. I need to learn about what all this, because it sounds like it's a financial services, or is it the tech folks asking for the money? And maybe it's a shared request, which is, you've hinted at it as well. So I'm having trouble with this one. Why wasn't it at budget?
So I guess there's a couple of reasons why it wasn't at budget. The archiving of the database, we only discovered that a month ago. As we are going and progressing through some of our IT services, we have a new IT manager. We're trying to make full use of our system, I guess you could say. The other thing we need to do is make sure that we can use the system, and customer consolidation is a project that we're currently working on in order to work with Virtual City Hall. So at budget time, it wasn't known about the data archiving, that wasn't being done. And with a new IT manager, that wasn't anything on the top of their list.
Okay.
So that's a new
Thank you for that. So I guess what I'm saying is, we've been presented with this today. This is a priority. It needs to be done. We also had a similar list at budget time that was hundreds of thousands of dollars long from IT. This is important. This needs to be done. I'm not prepared to move forward with this dollar amount without having flushed it out in terms of what's really important, because it all seems important. And the other concern I have is, what are we bringing to the table? If this is a cost, and if it's interdepartmental, what are these other departments bringing to the table in terms of their own internal budgets? What kind of review have you done internally? Have they done internally to say, look, we've got some money. If this is so important, we'll pause these projects and we'll give you funds for this project because there's value in it. We talked about value. If this is so valuable, what internal funds are available or will be moved around, right? My wife wants to paint the house this summer. I'm like, we talked about the windows 3 years ago. We got to get the windows done first. What internal review? If you came to us and said, this is the cost, but we talked about it, we're willing to contribute, reallocate priorities for a cost of $30,000. That's a conversation I can get my head around.
So we did review. So back in last year, we started working on trying to change our chart of accounts. The initial look at it was that it would only take 200 or 300 accounts. Easy to do. Started to grow to about 800 accounts. So we would address the need of making our budget software work. We would do a Band-Aid solution. We'd fix whatever chart of accounts need to be fixed in order to make that functioning. However, every budget year we go through, during the year when we're doing reporting, managers and directors in the departments don't have usable information. And part of that is this couple of things, I guess, with the chart of account. But one of the main ones would be our object code, which gives the specific details of that cost. So a good example I like to use is the water treatment plant. Andy, the manager there, he keeps copies of all his invoices for chemicals, and he tracks all of his costs for his chemicals individually on his own. Doesn't use the system. Now, the reason why is because that object code says chemicals. So he's got 9 chemicals, 10 chemicals, how many chemicals he's using, all in one number. So how much chemical cost is he using this year compared to next year? He doesn't have that information. So he creates his own financial information. So why can't we do that for him? We can't do that for him because our information is not there for him to make those decisions, look at what he's doing. We have a couple accounts, and this was brought to my attention, and it was already in my mind already. We've got, say, office supplies and operating supplies, so what's the difference? Yeah. But then we've got all these accounts.
No,
So-
I'm sorry, I don't mean to get off track. I was sold on the value of it. I understand the need for it. I'm with you. My concern is if it's so valuable, what are the other departments in this corporation willing to give up to make this happen? You've come to us to ask for the bulk amount without looking internally to other departments. So if it's so valuable, that's my concern.
Okay. IT has also reviewed any kind of software and any kind of service expenses that they've budgeted for. We've already reallocated some of those costs as well, because what we're finding is as we keep going more and more into our system, we're finding more and more things that need to be cleaned up. So we are using IT budget. The other departments, we haven't really asked for what they've got in their budget. We know during budget time that they were already pretty tight. So we have already done some reallocating between IT and within financial services. A lot of what we're asking from the departments is their time. This project of the chart of account restructuring, the amount of time that the city has to put in is about 1.5 times what our consultants would be putting in. So we did look, we tried looking at reserves, we tried looking within our own budgets. We've already reallocated within our own budgets already for a couple other projects that were smaller projects. But we are at the point where we're a large number now.
Thank you. Mayor Dion?
Tony had here as well.
Yeah.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Dion?
Okay, I have just a couple comments, okay? We get a new IT person, okay? And they come to us during budget, when they should, and give us this multi-$100,000 plan over the next few years, okay? And I understand it, and I buy into it, okay? But then you come today with 70,000 and this. I understand the Great Plains, because I can understand archiving. We all sometimes forget the old records. Okay, I understand that. But now you want this, the 70,000 to the accounts. My question is, what's next? You're starting to sound like our water treatment plant, that the cost is never going to end. And so my concern is, I bought into the new director when she came. I liked the idea. We're old. We got to get things going. But we're 3 months away from that budget, and you're asking us for something that wasn't included in the budget. So I don't know why this accounts thing didn't appear during this process of you reviewing your department with IT, because I can understand the archiving. I'll give you that one. But I can't understand this one. Because if you're reviewing our system, and we have a system that we bought in 2015, and we're still not using it, you know, and now we're gonna start, it sort of scratches my head, because what's next?
So I can tell you why it wasn't presented to the budget as well. So when we were going through budget deliberations, we ended up having to provide a line-by-line budget for this year. We won't be able to get Questica going for next year's, for the 2022 budget. The earliest we can get it going, the Questica, is the 2023 budget. So by doing a line-by-line budget this year, we have to use our old software. And the chart of accounts, one of the things in order to get using our budgeting software is to redo our chart of accounts. We can take the easy way out and just change a few hundred accounts and spend our time doing that. Or we can do this the hard way and put a lot of time into it and a little bit extra money and do it so that it will affect all software and future years to come. So no, it wasn't budgeted for because it wasn't planned. The line-by-line budget is something we have to do this year.
Thank you. Councillor Head?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. A couple comments, I guess. Yeah, I agree with some of my colleagues has already stated, you know, their concerns with this motion coming forward. And I can agree that we need to do some archiving work for sure. And that cost is smaller than the other ask, I guess I would. You know, it's concerning to see that we have 6,725 inactive accounts. And it's likely that I think work should have been done on this prior to today. Now we see you mentioned some dates around 2006 of Great Plains being implemented, 2015, and you even make a comment around changed infrastructure. You know, and nothing's changed in my opinion, other than, you know, this should have been a council budget item, and I think that's already been discussed why it wasn't. But you know, I'm more than annoyed to see this come forward, because these are costs that shouldn't be incurred or should have been asked for at the beginning of the year. And so I'm not supporting this motion. I get the need of including and investing in IT, and we invested considerable amount of money this year to upgrade our system. And I don't think that this council is opposed to IT expansions. However, this ask on the heels of other items on the agenda, you know, just seems something that we should have been prepared for or I guess planning for. A little bit better. So I would hope that next year, I foresee this issue, if it's defeated tonight, coming to a budget item, and I would think it'd be more appropriate to see it there. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zepp, did you have anything?
Nothing further.
Great, thank you. Right, have a motion on the board. Oh, sorry, here we go. Oh.
Thank you. I just want to address Mayor Dion's question regarding the IT budget and the money that was put into the reserve from last year. That was strictly for the infrastructure to build our systems, our servers, our network. When our IT department had the changeover in its leadership, we had to look at our internal services and the ability to provide those services to not only our internal stakeholders, but to our external stakeholders, which are the residents. So that money was earmarked for that infrastructure and for those services. Our software is a separate entity in itself, and we started, as we implement those initiatives, there are unknowns that unfortunately do arise. We did have some very technically sound people working the Band-Aid system and fixing it as fires came up, rather than looking at what is actually causing that fire and addressing that fire. So this money would go a long way in addressing the charter of accounts fires that are causing some of the pain points that have been brought forth. This is a separate entity in the ask that was presented at budget from IT, though. This is a financial service initiative that has corporate repercussions and corporate implications.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Edwards?
Yes, thank you. So I get the feeling that some of this is because we requested a line-by-line budget.
Correct.
So if we kept the budget the same format as we have in the last few years, could you add this to the next year's budget and have it ready for 2023?
Director?
The chart of accounts or the Questica software?
What affects the line by line?
The Questica budget would, because we can't use a new software and train and implement for a line-by-line budget within 6-7 months.
So that's the $7,000 ask, is that?
That's the archiving that we're asking for, the $6,900, or sorry, $7,900, I believe.
So the 70,000 is the line by line?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cody?
Yes, thank you, Charlene. I too am not happy at the fact that this wasn't in the budget, but it wasn't in the budget. And if we need it for line by line, and if we need it, I guess we need it. I hate doing these things. I just detest it, that we should take money from the stabilization fund, but at the same time, I guess from time to time, we have to bite the bullet. And if that were the case, if this is such an important item for the chart accounts, then I guess we should be doing it. And if this makes a difference to our budgeting process next year, then certainly I'm willing to proceed with it. Because I think the budgeting process that we need is critical. And I think the line-by-line budgeting is critical. And if this is what we need to do it, then I'd be prepared to go with the recommendation, and I will move it.
Thank you, Councillor Cody. Councillor Kilmore?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I agree with Councillor Cody. It is really critical and time-consuming to take the data that we have and put it into a system that is usable by all of our departments, which ultimately I am hearing will help us through the budget and be more particular in the budget area. The question I have for the director is I want to be clear that within this ask, that there won't be an increase in human hours for this software to be, for the data to be converted. I just want to be I just want to hear that for sure all the departments have, what I heard you say, all the departments were willing to do the human hours.
There's going to be no extra people hired, no consultants, no
And they'll
temporary
be able to
staff.
do their own, the work that they already have in there. There will not be a need to hire any other human.
No, the Central Square is going to be providing us with assistance on how we can do it ourselves. They're not doing it for us. This is there's different parts to the project. They'll do modeling for us, and then we will carry on from there. So
It requires training time, it requires, so there won't be any need, the rest of the city work will be able to get done that is in the works for this year. There won't be any need or ask.
we won't be asking for more staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Else?
Question here, Tony Head.
Sure, go ahead. Councillor?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Question for the director. So you were saying that if we don't pass this motion this evening, are you alluding to that we would not be getting the line-by-line budget item as
Not
passed
at
in
all.
this chambers?
Not at all. We have to give a line-by-line budget, whichever way we can provide it.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
Okay, it's moved by Councillor Cody. The voting is open. Councillor Zepp?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Head?
No.
Thank you. Close the vote. Accept. Okay, carried? Yes, it's carried. Apparently. Councillor Zerkowski? Thank you. So we're gonna go to 7.3, positive telling, storytelling, marketing strategy, RFP.
Good evening. So as you will recall, there was a 2021 budget item for a positive storytelling campaign centered on economic development. In March, I brought forward a report that outlined the terms for that RFP to fulfill those services. The terms at the time were presented, but were not approved. So based on the feedback from this meeting, this report presents revised terms for consideration. The last RFP was written in a way that defined very specifically what the consultant would need to do to meet the goals of the RFP. Based on the feedback, what is being proposed now is that the consultant would define in their proposal their vision and strategy for how they would achieve the goal. The RFP also now includes measurement criteria that will consider local knowledge of the community and economic development experience. The full criteria is available on page 157 of the agenda package. In terms of timeline, the project milestones will be defined by the proponents. The only expectation in terms of timeline is that the project does not extend beyond 1 year from the award of the RFP. If approved today, the RFP will be released on June 1st, with project award expected by July or August of this year. So the RFP, as I'm proposing tonight, will still define minimum expectations, but will not be as prescriptive as the first version, which is what I think I heard from the last meeting of council. So that concludes the presentation, if there's any questions about this.
Great, thank you. Councillor Zerkowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank the manager for her work on this, and I move the recommendation.
Great, thank you. Councillor Cody?
Yes, I really appreciate the work that Kylie did on this file. As you know, last time, we didn't agree that the RFP was what we wanted. And she took it to heart, and she did a tremendously good job. This is a great report, and it's exactly, I think, what this council has asked for initially, and we now have. And you have to give her a lot of credit for that. I think we're going to have a great opportunity here of collaboration. I think what I really like seeing in here is that we're going to collaborate with all of the stakeholders. There's going to be a bunch of them. There's going to be Parita, there's going to be the Chamber, there's going to be Native groups, there's going to be all measure of people, and I think that's what's important here. That's what's very important here. And I think whomever gets this job, I think you will find will work well with Ms. Bear, and I believe that we've got what we want, and I think we'll get a good product, and I think we'll get the stories that we need to make this city more positive. This city here is a great city, one of the greatest in the nation. But we get a poor spin from a lot of people, and a lot of times we get a poor spin from ourselves. We don't and aren't nearly as positive as we should be. There's so many good things going on in our community. There's so many good things going on, and we never seem to tell the people about it. We've got lots of things coming. We've got economic development coming. We need to tell those stories. We've got to tell the public this. And that's what's going to be important in this storytelling operation that we've got before us tonight. And I'm very pleased to see the RFP rolled out the way it is, and I totally 100% approve of it.
Great, thank you. Councillor O'Grotnick?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Kylie, for the report. And I too want to say that I'm
I'm pleased with the report. I'm pleased that council is hopefully proceeding with this today. I think it's crucial, as Councillor Cody said. We need people to realize that Prince Albert is a great place to work, play, live, and invest. And that's what this is about. It's about council directing the information to a consultant, and the consultant coming up with the way of showing Prince Albert the truth about Prince Albert. That's what it's about. It's about saying that these are some of the advantages of doing business, for example, in Prince Albert. This is the advantage of living in Prince Albert versus Saskatoon or another community. You know, this is the advantage of the playing in Prince Albert. Look at the opportunities that are about to happen in this community. And we need to sell that. We need to show that, along with, you know, a top-notch theater in Prince Albert and all of the different theater companies, we have sport, we have recreational facilities. We're building a new aquatic center, and on and on. We have the Rotary Trail. We have, you know, the community services, or not community services, we have the Little Red Master Plan. Look at the potential there. And this is what we need to show. We need to show this is what Prince Albert is about. You know, I was born and raised in this community, worked for a few years outside the community in rural Saskatchewan, came back, and I'm proud. I'm proud of the history, and I'm proud of what Prince Albert stands for. And if you look at all of the remarkable things that we have accomplished as a community, you know, we overcame a really poor investment 100 years ago. An investment that actually had the potential of working, but there was this war that broke out that then bankrupted that investment. And these are the kinds of stories that people need to hear. People need to know about Prince Albert and the positive image that we have. And we need to get ahead of social media because, as Councillor Cody said, sometimes we just get beat up big time. And a lot of it's some myths that are being circulated on social media about Prince Albert. You know, I read it all the time, and I'm just thinking, like, okay, you know, we need to have actually another person in communications that just monitors social media to get it right. Or we can do this and say, this is the real story about Prince Albert. And that's what I think this is about. It's going to assist our communications people in telling our story about Prince Albert and why it's a great place. I want to emphasize why it's a great place to work, play, live, and invest. And that's the key here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Zepp, did you have anything?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Councillor Head?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a couple, I was actually surprised to see this back on the agenda because I thought we defeated it already. However, it's here again, and so I'm not going to regurgitate all my comments because I did speak against it, and I won't be supporting this motion because I do feel that 50,000 would be best served to the residents in other areas. So, but yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards?
Thank you. I wasn't going to talk because I'm hungry, but great job on the report. There's something that we need to know, though, is we're not voting on the $50,000 here. We're voting, the $50,000 is passed, it's done, we're moving forward with the project. It's just, now we've brought the report on how we're going to find the right person. That's what we're voting on. So if you vote against it, you're voting against the proposal that's been written. That's everything.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Zerikowski?
Just one little question for me to the manager. Is this more of an expression of interest, or is this an RFP? And is that a thin line that is not really debatable?
I think it works well as an RFP, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Mayor Dion, is there anything
He
new?
sparked another question. So when people read this, it's wide open for anyone to bid. like just not media companies or consultants, but like we've used some great video people that have come and made videos for us. They're also all in the queue.
Yeah, so that's right. So the way it'll work is the terms will go out and there's goals defined. It's in the report there. So if you think you're capable of achieving the goals that are defined, you would put forward your plan as you vision it, and we would measure that plan against all other proposals that come in and based on the criteria that we've set out. So the committee that comes together will have to assess, the creativity, the ambition, the vision, and make a decision based on that. And so it's binding in that way that the final decision, it's not exploratory, it's tell me your vision and we will award it based on what we hear.
Thank you. Moved by Zerkowski, and I'll do the vote. Voting's now open. Councillor Zepp.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Head.
No.
Thank you. I'll close the vote. Accept. Thank you. Right, moving on. 7.4. Using safety reserve to pay for unbudgeted costs and the results of OH&S legislation changes. Presentation by Clem Leclerc. Thank you. At 5 minutes. Oh, I better turn you on. I guess I should hear you. There we go.
Test. There. All right. I won't take the full 5 minutes because I don't want to get in front of Councillor Edwards and a dinner. So on February of 2021, the city released a media notification from Occupational Health and Safety saying that effective April 1st, they were changing their standards. So the amendments that were being adopted were bringing workers doing seismic exploration and blasting requirements into the regulations, consolidating prime contractors, WMIS requirements into the regulations, as well as some housekeeping. But more importantly, they were changing some of their personal protective standards that they were requiring us to follow. With headwear, eye and face protection, protective footwear, hearing protection, and then personal flotation devices as well. So as a result of the media release, our Occupational Health and Safety Department started to do a comprehensive review of our current stock to determine whether or not our current PPE was compliant. What we learned is that we weren't compliant and we needed to replace a number of items. Specifically regarding the PPE, so protective headwear, face shield, safety glasses, earplugs, earmuffs, first aid kits and containers, as well as we needed to purchase new manuals for the department. It's projected that these costs will be approximately $15,000. That was not budgeted as we had received the information after budget had passed in February. We're asking to use the Safety Reserve Fund, which has a current balance of approximately $146,782. So once these expenditures are expelled, we expect that to be have a remaining budget of $131,782. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kilmore.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a couple of questions in regard to timing and process that our city follows and city managers follow. We have an occupational health and safety person, and it's my understanding that these regulations are changed yearly and reviewed yearly by the government of Saskatchewan in its kind of October, and there's work that is done ahead of time. Well, with this change and asking for money from the reserve, which is it's meant to be, right? The reserve is meant to be used that way. But I'm just wondering the timing piece, the assessment done by whom? Is that not an ongoing thing that our managers would be doing, looking at the equipment used, and it would be at their fingertips?
Yeah, so the occupational health and safety coordinator was the individual who did our review of our current equipment, and they do that on a regular basis. However, it was unknown at this time that until February that the changes were actually going to occur.
So the changes in headwear, or the hard hats?
Yes.
Like they're completely new? Or are they still CSA approved?
They're still CSA approved, but they are a different standard.
Is it mostly the first aid that was changed?
There are components to the first aid kits as well, which is requiring us to get bigger boxes and to accommodate that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Mayor Dion?
Okay, when you get these from the government, do you write them back and say, we understand this, but our challenge is, again, you download us after we've approved our budget, and it's downloading, it was your, it's more money to us. So I think it's important in the future when these things happen that you swiftly write a letter back to them. We understand, but you know perfectly well that we all operate on a budget cycle, them included. And when these make these changes, they should take into consideration budget cycles. Because every time they download, it's more money for them, less for us. So then we got to figure out how to get it. So I hope in the future that we let the government know, we understand it, but why can you not follow the budget guidelines? You know, it's always after the budget. Well, they all know the budget's due at the same time. So I just hope when you write them back saying, we're not happy because why don't you fix it in the budget schedule? Saying, we've got all these rules changed. You said they did it in October? So is that correct?
They provided the documentation to us in February of 2021, but I believe that the government does an annual assessment in the month of October, November.
Yeah, and so I think that's the problem, that you have to let them know that when they're going to download that we have a budget cycle, and it has to fall within our budget cycle. So if they're going to make a change, as of this, they should have made it effective January 1st, 22. Then we know it, we can put it in our budget. And if we don't start kicking back to them, well, it's going to continue, we know that, but at least let's start kicking back to them.
Great, thank you. Councillor Kilmore?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to, on what the mayor was indicating, I think that there is a 1 year for compliance given organizations.
I'd have to double check that. I'm not aware of that. I believe would be required to by the end of this year.
I do think that we should look into that because I do think that there is a 1 year of compliance with all OH&S.
Councillor Edwards?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just quickly, these downloads are unbelievable. These governments, these senior governments, need to stop and think about the cost that they're putting on the residents, because every time they create a new project and create this type of information, like, I mean, my goodness, our hard hats are hard hats. It just ticks me off that they continually download onto our residents who have to come up with the additional money because, oh my goodness, we got to create a new policy because they think they have to. And it's just ridiculous.
Thank you. Councillor Zepp, did you have anything?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Councillor Head?
Nothing further, no.
Thank you. Need a motion? Councillor Kilmore?
I will move.
Thank you. Oh, goodness. Like we have a choice here. Okay, the votes, and it's open. Councillor Zepp?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Head?
Yes.
Thank you. close, accept. Perfect. Okay, so 7.5, bicycle theft deterrent and bylaw enforcement.
First, I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Dion.
What this is, it actually started in the police commission, because we have chop shops, we have all these kinds of bikes. Well, one of the things that we discovered talking to other cities is that every bike that's manufactured has a serial number. And that's the most important way to identify the bike. And the problem that we get is, and you go to our bike auctions, we have some beautiful bikes that go up for sale. And the problem is they're hard to return when we don't have serial numbers. So we've already started a campaign. We did it last Tuesday. We're going to continue that. The bikes are rolling out to write down your serial number because it's important when it is gone. It'll also affect in Councillor Miller's ward, where she showed us some pictures of chop shops. It will really affect them because now they're going to alter the bike. And there is a process to do that. You go to the police station with the two bikes and say, this is the number. So there is a process that can do that. But the biggest thing that is going to now is it also gives us a tool to check to make sure that all licenses are licensed and have a serial number, have a serial number. And that'll be one of the biggest effects that we have. It just gives us a better tool to enforce the rules and to recover stolen bikes, and also to check people at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're riding a bike with no lights on and everything else. When we do stop, and we can now also check to see if that bike is stolen.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. Councillor Zerkowski.
And the cost to the public is?
Nothing.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mayor Dion.
the cost to the public is nothing. Actually, it's probably going to get your bike back if you record the serial number.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to support the motion. I'm not sure it goes far enough. The residents are ticked and frustrated. Number one, they're stealing bikes. And number two, they're using these bikes at night to get around, and they're driving up inside of driveways, and they check every damn car for unlocked car doors. And people are fed up, and this seems small, but this is big for our residents. And it's time that we address this. You know, there's probably 30 of these turkeys running around wreaking havoc in our city, and we need to stop them. I'm almost prepared to put a ban on bikes after midnight. I'm not going to do it right now, but it's potential.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Zepp, did you have anything?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question for those who are on the PA Police Board Commission. I'm just wondering if those individuals who are on the Police Board Commission from Council might be able to just mention this. So on the PA Police website currently, there is a link called Register Your Bike, and where it's encouraged that you can register your serial number on your bicycle. However, that link is broken right now, and I've tried it on more than one device, and so it encourages you to do so, but you can't do it online. And so I'm hoping that maybe that could just be remembered, because that is something that, as the mayor mentioned, that citizens might want to be able to do, but right now on the papolice.ca website, that link has an internal error. So just wanted to note that. It is great to record your serial number of your bicycle, as the mayor mentioned. I would point out that that even people who have their serial number of their bicycle recorded and provided to police after a theft, there are still many bicycle thefts where you don't receive your bicycle back, that it is unfortunately gone. So those would be my comments. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I know that the city police are working on their website to fix up those certain things, and I know Kylie was going to talk with them to see what they're doing with our city one. So Councillor Head, did you have anything?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just a comment again. I support this motion, and as Councillor Edwards has mentioned, does it go far enough? I don't know. I think it's a start, and definitely, hoping we can limit or at least start addressing some of these thefts when it comes to bicycles. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Somebody move the motion? Oh. Easy. Okay. Prompt the vote. Everybody have their vote. Councillor Zepp?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Head?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll close the vote and accept. Thank you. Okay, do we have any unfinished business?
No, we don't have any unfinished business.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Kilmore?
Move motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I can't find it.
You're doing too good to the end.
I know, it just left. Okay, I'll open it. Thank you. Councillor Zepp?
Yes.
Councillor Head?
Yes.
Thank you. Close and accept. Thank you. Well, I'm a little warmish up here, so we're good.